Greetings, fellow humans, and welcome to another chat with your, hopefully, if not your favorite JD, at least one of your favorite JDs. JD Estrada, indie author from Puerto Rico who now lives in Atlanta because that makes sense. I wanted to do a couple of videos where I talked about formative books that kind of broke us in a way, or authors that kind of broke us in a way. Just because I thought it would be interesting, to do this for BookTube and AuthorTube. It's kind of a combination because as a writer, I'm also a reader, and that should be the case for pretty much anyone who writes. First book that I wanted to share with you is The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. This is the first book that I ever read that I loved, that I absolutely loved, that I tore through it, that it left an impression, that it still means so much to me, and that it still, it still holds. It stands the test of time, because some things you might read when you're a kid and then you grow up and you read it again and something's off. Not this. This is, yes, it has Christian allegory. Some people might have issue with that. I do not have issue with that. I'm not a devout Christian or anything of the sorts. I'm actually agnostic. We'll talk more about that in another video. I do believe in God. But I love that book. And I realized that when I wrote Given to Fly, it was, when I wrote Given to Fly, it was kind of a portal fantasy, but not as much as anything in the world of Narnia. But I read that and it broke me in the best way possible. I remember reading it as a kid when I was like 8 years old, 9 years old maybe. It was eight, and then I read about Turkish Delight, and I always was like, what the hell does that taste like? What does it taste like? And finally, my brother's mother-in-law, they went to Turkey, and she brought over Turkish Delight, 2 types. She brought one that was dipped in chocolate, and she brought one that was hazelnut, and it was divine. If you've never had Turkish Delight, it's like a really fancy jelly. Except that it doesn't feel as rubbery. I don't know how they achieve that specific texture, or the ones that I've normally had. It's obviously chewy and stuff like that, but it doesn't feel completely synthetic. Obviously, it's not healthy for you. And I know that I'm pretty sure that Picasso survived on Turkish Delight for a couple of days when he was in his creative peaks. But this book, the characters, yeah, a little bit, but it was the adventure of going into a place where you're not really supposed to find something and finding something, that blew me away. And just the fawn, and going through the entire closet and coming out in woods and seeing this new world that is in strife and that needs heroes, and the heroes are unlikely and stuff like that. Yeah, it's the hero's journey through a portal story, but still, it works. It's magical. And to this day, I reread it last year. Absolutely loved it. Smiling from top to bottom. And for me, it was definitely, I think it's my first formative book, and probably you'll see stuff that it'll show that it's one of my formative books. In The Human Cycle and Only Human, the first time that Mrs. Fawn appears, one of my favorite characters, which is based on my mom, she appears in the midst of a really dense fog in France, next to a lamppost. Little love letter to C.S. Lewis. And I named Mom's character Mrs. Fawn because, obviously, why not? So, what's special to me about that book is that I read it as a kid, I read it as a teen, I read it in my 20s, I read it in my 30s, and I've read it in my 40s. And it always delivers. It always brings a smile on my face, and it's what I strive to write. In some of my books. Some of my books are for younger readers, and I hope that when they read it, I hope that when readers come across it when they're young, and then they're moving to another house, they find the book and they go like, oh, I remember that book, let me read it again. And I hope that those two versions of themselves, when they read, they can have a cup of tea, a conversation, and go like, yeah, that's still a cool book, and for different reasons. So I'm not sure if you've ever read anything of the Chronicles of Narnia. For me, obviously, it's my favorite because it's the one that broke me in, but it's actually neck and neck with The Voyage of the Dawn Treader, because that book is sensational. And The Silver Chair I'm also fond of. The other books are kind of hit and miss. More miss than hit. Not bad, all of them, but not phenomenal, all of them. So how about you? Have you ever read something that sticks with you, that you keep reading and going back to it? I have more books like this. And I don't want to do spoilers and stuff like that. I just want you to feel my love for the book as a reader. And I don't want to go into specifics of characters, because although these are tried and true stories and they've been adapted on the screen and stuff like that, I never want to offer spoilers. I hate spoilers. But yeah, this is still a really special book. It still makes me smile, and I really hope that at least one of my books is something that someone picks up and goes, this is going to be with me for life. So, what do you think about this brief discussion? What do you think about the Chronicles of Narnia? What do you think about the Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe? Do you think that it's a little too heavy-handed with its Christian allegory? Do you think it's not enough? What do you think about Aslan, the different characters? Have you ever tried Turkish Delight? By all means, look at that sexy comment section beckoning below. And by all means, use it, because, it's fun. It's fun to chat. So by all means, take care, read aplenty, smile even more often, and peace, love, and Mikey rolls.